Helljumpers, Chapter 12, Part 2. About 1.5 hours later, the car came to a stop in a parking lot in the middle of a village McGregor called home. The village itself reminded Twilight of Equestria, though the houses weren't the concrete blocks that she had seen in the cities or military bases, but wooden ones with stone bases. McGregor told him that the houses were built to resemble an old building style while still having the same utilities as a regular house. "When we get to the bar, you two should let me introduce you to." McGregor's voice broke Twilight's train of thought. Both ponies nodded, and they were still wearing their black dress uniform, so they were probably gonna get some strange looks. The Scottish Marine opened the door to the pub. Immediately after, which music started pouring through, McGregor looked around before spotting a group of 3 civilians at the back of the bar. Quickly making their way over to the table, surprisingly they didn't get as many looks as she had expected, although that could be chalked up to some of the Scotsmen being too drunk. "Hey, Alec, you're late!" one of the 3 shouted the moment he saw the Marine walking towards them. "Had to do something for the lads upstairs," Alec responded, sitting down at the table with the others, allowing for Scoots and Twilight to also take a seat. What the hell did you guys give me?" one of the 3 friends asked. I think I'm hallucinating," he added while studying the liquid in his glass.
Hi?
Twilight said, smiling weakly, the surprise causing Alec's female friend to do a spit take.
We can't be all hallucinating the same thing at the same time, can we?
She asked the others, who were also staring at the ponies. Before they could theorize any better further, Alex interfered. Anyway, Willie, Kirsten, Ronald, me, Twilight, and Scootaloo," he said, pointing to the respective ponies. "They're with the 65th Shock Troop Division." The 3 friends looked at each other silently, trying to decide their course of action. What they came up with surprised Twilight. "Hey, barkeep, get these 2 aliens a beer." Twilight was in the back of McGregor's car with Scootaloo. The Pegasus had a couple of beers herself back at the bar, but due to never having drunk alcohol in her entire life in combination with her smaller body, the liquid had a severe effect on her. The night itself had gone pretty well, no one had bothered them, a few people had asked some things about what they were, or where they came from, but mostly Twilight had opted to tell them that was classified, so she wouldn't get in trouble for that with Oni. She looked over at Scootaloo, who was peacefully sleeping, feeling a pang of pity for the Pegasus that would have to suffer a hangover the next morning. The car came to a stop at the house outside the village. Twilight loaded Scootaloo on her back, and after she got out of the car, the house was dark, indicating that the inhabitants were already asleep. "I'll show you a room. I wanted to surprise my kin, so I didn't tell them that I was coming to visit them, so could you lads stay in that room tomorrow morning until I come and get you?" Alec asked, and Twilight nodded. Alec opened the doors and they silently made their way to a guest room where a neatly made bed stood. Twilight put Scoots under the blanket on one side of the bed as she claimed the other.
"See you tomorrow, McGregor, and thanks for letting us stay,"
she whispered. "My pleasure, Sparkle," he responded, closing the door behind him. Twilight laid down in the bed, moaning in pleasure as she found it to be incredibly soft, unlike the bunks in the Stalwart Dawn that felt like they were made from concrete. Settling into the bed, it didn't take long for the alicorn to start drifting to sleep. Twilight was standing on a grassy hill, feeling a bit disorientated as she looked around. Down the hill about 200 meters in front of her, she could see a familiar village in the distance. Ponyville. She tried to move, but she couldn't. Putting all of her strength into raising a leg did not help a single bit. Looking down at her legs, she found nothing amiss. Studying her surroundings, she suddenly heard a sound coming from the sky. Looking at the source of the sound made her blood go cold. A Covenant CCS-class battlecruiser was looming over the village with its main glassing beam charging.
"Wait, no, hey, any pony, get out of the village!"
she screamed out of the top of her lungs in panic. She could see ponies wandering, not knowing the danger that they were in. She screamed as plasma was flung from the bottom of the spaceship, obliterating the town in hellfire. She could see Pegasi falling down from the sky with burned wings, and unicorns and earth ponies with their hides ablaze crawling from the collapsed houses near the edge of the town. Twilight collapsed, crying, trying to crawl forward, but whatever cruel force was acting on her did not allow for her to go forward. Unannounced to Twilight, the dream started to slow down, and eventually froze entirely. It took a few moments for the alicorn to realize that the dream had stopped in its tracks, and the moment she noticed, she looked around in confusion. In the corner of her eyes, she spotted something mostly sky blue, but it also had a rainbow mane. Turning around completely, she found her body growing cold at the sight of the pony.
Rainbow? Twilight?
In Equestria, a few minutes prior, Rainbow was once again in the dream world, only this time, she wasn't accompanied by the Princess of Dreams. She had been tasked to identify nightmares, and if they weren't too severe to stop them, up to this point, no real nightmares had plagued any pony in Equestria. Sure, there were the occasional dreams of ponies worried about various things, but interfering with every bad dream would be 1, impossible, and 2, bad for the ponies themselves also. But without any nightmares, Dash was very bored. She felt a little guilty as she wished for a nightmare to give her something to do. Not long after, her wish got granted and she felt a tug on her body as it detected a nightmare, and a strong one at that. Rainbow followed the feeling to the dream bubble of origin, her eyes widening as she saw where it was located. The large scar that Discord had made, according to the princess, a bit deeper into the scar, she could see a red dream bubble, indicating a nightmare. Remembering the things Luna had told her about the scar, she had turned away so she wouldn't get trapped by it. As she turned, Rainbow felt another tug pull her towards the bubble. Looking back at it, Rainbow could feel the desperation coming from it.
Bucket.
Dash said and sprinted into the scar. Black tentacles sprung out from the nothingness, flying towards the blue Pegasus, trying to restrain her. Realizing her mistake, Dash tried to get back out of the scar, but the tentacles had already reached her, but just before they touched her, they smashed into a red barrier and dissipated. The confused pony looked at the barrier that had formed around her body that was keeping the blackness in check. A red lightning bolt adorned her chest, flaring up every time a tentacle smashed into the barrier and dissipated. The elements of loyalty. Whatever chaos magic Discord had used was unable to beat through the barrier made by the elements of harmony. Grinning widely, Dash set off deeper into the scar towards the nightmare. Around her were various dream bubbles floating, but every time she tried to get a better look, a tentacle popped the bubble, denying the Pegasus a chance to investigate. But the general feeling of fear was ever present, indicating the dreams could not be pleasant ones. She arrived at the nightmare she had sensed and looked at the bubble, and out of nowhere, another black tentacle sprung out and launched out at the bubble.
Oh, no you don't!
She shouted and tried to jump in between the tentacle and the bubble. She almost made it, but the black goo managed to speed up at the last moment. But, just before the tentacle hit, a magenta barrier adorned with a 6-pointed starburst sprung up. Rainbow Dash's heart skipped a beat.
Wait, Twilight?
She whispered. Rushing over to the bubble, she entered through the shield, and the elements of loyalty and magic shield mixed to allow Dash through. Dash immediately got to work at getting through the dream, which didn't take long, and she felt the now familiar feeling of slipping into a dream. Inside of the dreamscape. Dash reorientated herself the moment she entered the dream, and some ponies screamed, causing Dash to flinch and jumped around. She saw Twilight standing a small distance away from her, looking down at a hill at Ponyville. At least, the remains of it. A large beam of fire from a strange metal ship was burning the village to a crisp, ponies burning alive, and Rainbow tried to regain her composure, determined to stop the dream. Concentrating on the depiction of Twilight's mind, she went to work. Waves hitting Rainbow's consciousness, trying to get the foreign entity out of the dream bubble, but Rainbow persisted. No one was going to stop the element of loyalty from helping her friend, even that friend herself. Slowly but surely, the dream came to a halt, and Rainbow stopped after the dream wasn't moving in the slightest, and looked at Twilight. The alicorn was wearing some sort of black armor, and a bit further away from her, a helmet with a slot for her horn laid in the grass. Twilight, by this point, had stopped sobbing and looked around confused, and shortly after, noticed Dash and turned to her.
Rainbow?
She asked.
Twilight?
Dash replied, not believing her eyes. Before any other action could be taken, Twilight tackled Rainbow in a hug.
Is it really you, Rainbow?
She asked, her eyes tearing up again.
Yeah, it's me, Twilight.
Dash stuttered, trying to find the words to say while also holding Twilight in a tight hug. Twilight released the hug and looked at Rainbow.
This isn't real, is it? Just a dream?
she said dejectedly. Rainbow also released her hug a bit.
Wait, what? Well, I mean, yes, it is a dream, but I'm really here. Princess Luna is teaching me how to dreamwalk.
Hearing this formed a smile on Twilight's face, and she hugged the Pegasus friend again. Rainbow took the time to look at her dream in detail.
So, what the hey is that thing, Twilight?
She asked, looking up in fear at the cruiser bombarding Ponyville. Twilight followed Rainbow's gaze up to the cruiser, her heartbeat increasing again, but she soon remembered that it was just a dream.
It's a CSS battle cruiser.
She spat the words as if they were poison.
It's the second most used ship in the Covenant fleet, after the Corvettes.
Rainbow stayed silent for a moment in awe of the ship. It had to be over 1.5 kilometers long.
Wait, why is it attacking Ponyville, and who are the Covenant?
She asked.
Well, the Covenant are a collection of aliens that had set out a campaign of genocide. They would kill everything that opposes their religion.
Twilight said with a dark tone in her voice.
Wait, what? Did you say aliens?
Rainbow said, looking at Twilight in disbelief. Twilight kept looking at the ship in the sky while answering.
We're not alone out there, Rainbow. There are so many more worlds and wonders out there. You wouldn't be even able to imagine them.
The dream world started to ripple, causing Twilight to spring into action, levitating the helmet on her head. Rainbow watched in awe as the transparent visor turned opaque, obscuring Twilight's face, and lights sprung on either side of the helmet.
What's going on, Rainbow?
Twilight asked, ready just in case anything jumped at them.
You're being awoken. Look, I'll try and find you the next time you sleep.
Dash quickly said. Twilight, in a moment of clarity, managed to say 2 more words before she pulled out of the dream world.
Send Dragon Mail!
Rainbow got booted back into the dream world as Twilight's bubble became dormant due to being awake. It didn't matter to Rainbow. She knew where it was and what she had to do. Rushing out of the Chaos Scar into the regular dreamscape just to be safe, she concentrated on waking up. She had a message to send.